Okay, once again, good morning. And so we'll begin now. All right, so yesterday we stopped at mistakes are okay. So हिजो हामीले के बुझ्यौँ भन्दाखेरि in speaking, you will make mistakes. I mean, everyone does. So please don't panic if you do make mistakes. Just move forward. के सोच्नुहोस् भने अगाडि बोल्दाखेरि म चाहिँ राम्ररी बोल्छु विदाउट एनी मिस्टेक्स भन्ने कुरा हो है just one second. Now, yesterday I told you a story, I would say, है मैले तपाईँहरूलाई एउटा स्टोरी सुनाएको थिएँ जसमा चाहिँ तपाईँहरू you reach the moon, you reach Saturn, है सो हामीहरू एउटा पार्ट टूमा युज गर्ने तरिका हो यो चाहिँ के हो भने where you expand your ideas. And we'll be speaking a little more on expanding ideas today. Now, what do you mean by expanding ideas? What do you think? What does it mean by expanding ideas?
एक्सपान्ड गर्नु अलिकति अब आइडियाहरू के भन्ने त्यसलाई नेपालीमा भन्न आएन
How can you expand your ideas? ल ठिक छ expand ideas भने के हो भन्दा नि how can you do it?
कनेक्टर्सहरू युज गर्ने अनि त्यो पास्ट टेन्स भयो प्रेजेन्ट फ्युचर टेन्सहरूसँग चाहिँ सेन्टेन्सलाई कनेक्ट गर्दै एक्सपान्ड गर्न खोज्ने होला
Okay, that's also one idea है त्यो पनि एउटा तरिका हो What about next one? अरू पनि के हुन सक्छ या लाइक प्रभात यहाँनिर च्याटमा लेख्नु भएको छ गफ हान्ने भने जस्तै है सो यस गफ हान्ने पनि हो है
कुनै रिजन्सहरू दिने
या रिजन्सहरू पनि ठिक छ त्यसै भित्र आउँछ तर पार्ट
कुनै कुराहरूलाई लिङ्क अप गरेर भन्ने
ओके लिङ्क गरेर भन्ने लिङ्किङ गरेर भन्ने अलिकति बढाउनु पर्यो है तर मेरो मेन सेन्स चाहिँ के हो भने आइ एम गोइङ टु टेल यु अ स्टोरी राइट नाउ दिस ह्यापन टु मी है ब्याक इन 2006 है सो आइम जस्ट गोइङ टु टेल यु अ स्टोरी नसुत्नु होला है बिकज इट्स जस्ट समथिङ द्याट आई वान्ट यु टु नो एन्ड यसले अरू कुरा पनि तपाईँहरूलाई अलिकति क्लियर गर्छ है सो जस्ट लिसन टु मी इट्स नट द्याट लङ सर्ट स्टोरी हो है So back in 2004, 2003 actually, when I finished my SLC, that's what they used to call it back then. I traveled to Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur, the capital city of Malaysia to be exact, to do my diploma in hospitality and tourism management. So I was a 16-year-old kid, free of any what do we say? I was free of any disciplinary rules from parents. So, I was alone there and I could do what I wanted. Now, Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur especially is a very hot and humid city. I would say that it's so hot that in the afternoon, if you come out in the sun, you would just, if you stand in the sun for about 2 or 3 minutes, you would just be soaking wet. It's really hot there. So, and every Friday night, I used to go to clubs, different clubs, to enjoy, drink some alcohol, have some fun. So one Friday night, I decided to go to this street named Bangsa. Bangsa is, it's like a party hub of Kuala Lumpur where there are more than 120 or 130 clubs, in one street, on one street. So I went there and, the streets, it was a Friday night, so it was a weekend, and the streets were lit up. I could hear music playing from each and every club. Each club had a different genre. Some played hip hop, some played R&B, and some played trance. So I could see people, young kids, some were fighting, probably because they were too drunk. I could see a girl sitting down on the pavement and just vomiting because she had had too much to drink. I decided to go to a club named Absolute because I heard that it was one of the most poshest club in Kuala Lumpur. I walked towards the gate of the club, and then suddenly a big man, he was about 6 foot 4 inches tall. He was an Indian man, a Tamil Indian, I would say, and he looked down on me and stopped me. Then he said I could not enter the club. Now, I was only 17, I would say 17 and a half years old. So he asked me for my ID. I refused to give it. And he knew that I was underage to enter. However, he said that if I bought a bottle of whiskey, then he would let me enter. The bottle of whiskey was quite expensive. I spent around 500 ringgits for that. Now, that would translate into 10,000 rupees Nepali at that time. So I bought my a bottle of Jack Daniels, my favorite whiskey, and I went in. Now the waiter, he escorted me to a corner of the club where I had to stand on a cocktail table. He brought me my whiskey, a bottle of Coke, a bucket of ice, and my whiskey glass. I poured some whiskey into my glass and put some Coke in, put some Coke and ice. I knew that the Coke was not stale because I could hear the fizz of the Coke when I put it into the whiskey. Then, one drink down, I was okay. The second drink down, I started to, feel the whiskey. And the third drink down, I was tipsy. I started to feel the music, I felt tipsy. I felt as though everything around me was fun. All this while, I couldn't help but feel a little uncomfortable. I felt as though someone was looking at me or staring at me. So I looked around the club. And as I scanned the club, I saw a girl. She was staring at me. She was in the other side of the club. She was staring at me. Then she looked, she looked like she looked Chinese. She was fair. She had long black hair. So I decided to just go and ask her to dance with me. Now I walked around the bar. I could hear the music, I could hear the music thumping in my heart. Then I walked up to her and I asked her if she would dance with me. To my amusement, she agreed, and we started dancing. So it was around 10:30 when we started dancing, and by the time the DJ announced that he would be playing the last song, it was already 2:30. So we had danced for 4 hours. Now, after the last song, I asked her if, where her friends were, who she was going home with, and she said that all her friends had already left. So I offered to drive her home. I had a car with me, so I offered to drive her home. And as we walked out of the club, we were sweating. It's a really hot place, so we were sweating while we were dancing. And this girl, she was wearing tank tops and short skirts, so all the sweat on her body made her feel cold when we exited the club, because there was a gush of wind that hit us, a breeze, a strong breeze of wind that hit us, and she felt cold. And now, me being the gentleman that I am, offered her my jacket. So she wore my jacket, and then we walked to my car and we sat down in the car and we drove off. Now, her house was about 45 minutes from where I lived. It was in a residential area. As we approached her house, she asked me to just park the car in her driveway. I could see her house was it was a two-story bungalow. It was white in color with a big chimney. The house also had different, multicolored fences around it, and a brown door, big brown door. Outside the house, there was a green field, and in the middle of the field, I could see a humongous tree. It looked like a banyan tree or a gulmohar tree. I'm not so sure, but it was humongous. And because it was dark, I could see I could see the shadow of the tree. It was really large. Now, she said goodbye and she walked towards her house. All of a sudden, I remembered that I hadn't asked for her number. So I called her and asked her for her number. She wrote her number on a piece of paper and gave it to me. Her name was Christina Emailing. And so I was pretty happy, I had a good night. So I went back home. Now, I didn't call her for around 3 days, but on the fourth day, I decided to maybe ask her out for coffee. So I called her. Someone picked up the phone. I knew it was not Christina from the voice. She sounded a little old. Then I asked if I could speak with Christina, and this lady, she just hung the phone. Now, I thought maybe there was a network problem, so I called back again. Then I asked her if I could speak with Christina again, and she asked me who I was. I told her that I was Christina's friend. And I mentioned that I had dropped her off 3 nights ago. Now, this lady started to get angry with me. She sounded frustrated. She said that it couldn't have been possible that I had dropped Christina off 3 nights ago. I asked her why, and she said that Christina had already died about 8 months ago. Now, I was shocked. However, I didn't believe what I was hearing. Then I decided to just go to Christina's house. I thought maybe Christina was pranking me. Maybe she was probably, with her friends and trying to prank me. So I drove my car all the way to her house. Then I honked my horn of my car, and from that brown door, from the house, from Christina's house, I saw an old lady. She looked like she was in her 60s. She was short. She looked Chinese, with hair that was, maybe like as long as a man's hair. It was curly, and she was short. She was wearing a long shirt and pajamas, that you wear at home, and a sandal. And she came out of the house. And she walked to my car, and I told her that I was the one who had called. So she invited me into her house. As I walked to her house, into her house, the door opened, and I could see a big picture of Christina, the same girl that I had seen, a big portrait of Christina on the mantelpiece. Okay, what is a mantelpiece? Mantelpiece भनेको के हो? Any idea? Mantelpiece भनेको. I saw a picture of Christina on the mantelpiece भनेको छु नि मैले. यो एउटा राम्रो word हो है? Mantelpiece. So mantelpiece is like तपाईको घरमा सजाउने एउटा पिस हुन्छ नि त्यो चिम्नीको माथिपट्टि हुन सक्छ तपाईको घरमा चिम्नी छ भने त्यो जुन ठाउँमा हामी फोटोहरू सजाउँछौँ त्यस्तोलाई चाहिँ म्यान्टल पिस भन्छ है So I saw a large portrait of Christina, the same girl that I had dropped that night, on the mantelpiece. Now, Chinese have a tradition of lighting 2 red candles beside the picture of someone who has died. So they light it for about a year. And I could see those large red candles, beside the picture of Christina. The lady, she invited me in and she was going on and on about what Christina liked and what she was like. She had died of blood cancer and she was only 18 years old. I still could not believe her. So I went around the living room, looking behind curtains, maybe expecting Christina to maybe just jump out and prank me. Maybe she would just jump out and say, Tiapa or something like that, So I was expecting that. Then this lady, she could know that, she knew that I didn't believe her. So she asked me if I wanted to go and visit the grave of Christina, into a graveyard. I agreed. So we drove to the graveyard. The graveyard was only about 5 minutes from our house. So we went to the graveyard. I parked my car. The graveyards there are very well managed. It looks beautiful actually. It doesn't look like the cemetery does not look dirty. It's not dirty. It's really clean, and they really take care of their cemeteries. So once we reached there, we walked towards Christina's grave. We walked past a lot of gravestones, through some fields. Then all of a sudden, in front of me was a large stone. The stone was Christina's gravestone. And on that stone, it was written, Christina Emailing, loving daughter, 1988 to 2006. Now, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I didn't know what happened that night. Who was with me? Who was that girl? Who took me to Christina's house? I mean, it's the same girl in the picture. So I couldn't make sense of what was happening. I was about 15 feet away from the gravestone. And this lady, she was Christina's mother. She walked towards the gravestone and looked down. And when she looked down behind the gravestone, I could see her face change. She frowned. And she looked at me and asked me, what is this? And she bent down, and from behind the gravestone, she brought out the jacket that I had given Christina that night. Okay, so यो एउटा कथा भने मैले है. What did you guys feel?
So psycho भयो सुनेर त अब
Okay. Okay, so त्यसपछि I told this lady to just drop that jacket, and then I put her in my car. I took her home. घरमा छोडिदिएर म घर गएँ. मैले घर गएर नेपालमा फोन गरेर मैले what I said was त्यो के वर्तमानको मन्त्रहरू चाहियो मलाई भनेर है घरमा होम लगाइदिनु भनेर. It was like, so I had to do all that. I took a shower and सुनपानी छर्केर, and I did all that. So after this incident, I've never had to see Christina again. This has never happened. I've never seen her again. I've never had to encounter her again now, and I hope I don't have to as well. So, okay, so what did you guys feel like? Some of you are saying that. What did I do? मैले यो expand your ideas को तपाईहरुलाई एउटा just a small एउटा भन्छ नि just example दिन खोजेको है. सो वाट डिड आई युज के युज गरेँ जुन चाहिँले तपाईँलाई एक्सप्यान्ड गर्न सकेँ मैले मेरो आइडियाजहरू के चिजले एक्सप्यान्ड गर्न सकेँ आई नो रिजनिङहरू छँदैछ आफ्नो ठाउँमा छ है रिजनिङ आई नो मेबी लिङ्किङहरू आफ्नो ठाउँमा छ मेबी कति ठाउँमा मैले मिस्टेक्स पनि गरेँ होला के कुरामा हुन्छ नि बिकज आई एम नट अ नेटिभ स्पिकर इभन दो आई नो लट अबाउट इङ्ग्लिस समटाइम्स आई डु मेक मिस्टेक्स सो द्याट डजन्ट रियली म्याटर सो मेन थिङ इज यस इमेजिनेसन हो सो इमेजिनेसनमा मैले तपाईँहरूलाई वर्ड्सको युज गरेर द एबिलिटी टु पुट यु देयर त्यो ठाउँमै राखिदिन सक्नु भनेको पनि इट्स समथिङ एल्स है पार्ट 2मा यो पनि एउटा ठुलो यसले पनि ठुलो योगदान गर्छ है नाउ हाउ डिड आई एक्सप्यान्ड भन्दाखेरि फर्स्ट अफ अल है तपाईँहरूले त्यो जुन बाङ्सा भन्ने स्ट्रिटमा गएको थियौँ हामी त्यो इमेजिन गर्नुभयो कि भएन त्यो स्ट्रिटमा जुन लाइट्सहरू बलेको थियो म्युजिकहरू सुनिरहेको थियो है त्यहाँनिर एउटा
इमेजिन गरेको
यस ओके अर्को कुरा त्यो इन्डियन पनि देखियो होला नि त्यो बाउन्सर के देखियो होला है
बाउन्सर तामिल वाला बाउन्सर त्यत्रो ज्याक फिल गरे नि
ओके देन व्हाट अबाउट त्यो क्लब भित्र त्यो कोकको फिस पनि कोक पनि फिस गरेको याद भयो होला है
ज्याक ड्यानियल पनि हो अनि सर अनि त्यहाँ म्युजिकहरू फिल गरे मैले
सो तपाईले त्यो केटीलाई त देख्नु भयो दिमागमा इमेजिन त गर्नु भयो
मैले इमेजिन गरे
आई डोन्ट नो
चल्नम्बु हैन
ओके सो आई डोन्ट नो हु यु इमेजिन्ड बट समवन है त्यसपछि त्यो हावाले पनि हानेको थियो हैन क्लबबाट निस्किदा
हानेको छ
अलि चिसो भएको थियो है ओके देन यु वेन्ट टु हर ए क्रिस्टिनाको घर पनि देख्नु भयो है त्यो सेतो घर रुख पनि छ है ओके ओके गुड देन त्यो क्रिस्टिनाको आमा देख्नु भयो
सुडी चाहिँ देखेन
क्रिस्टिनाको आमा अलिकति त्यो कस्तो थियो चाइनिज है
seems to look like Chinese.
या चाइनिज तपाईहरुले त्यो कुङफु हसलको छ नि त्यो एक्जाम्पल छ नि त्यस्तै याद गर्नुभयो क्या हो है
हो सेम होला
ओके so what did I do भन्दाखेरि I tried to use what do we say I tried to use sense of touch sense of feel sense of hearing है sense of अरु के हुन सक्छ sight sense of smell बुझ्नुभयो नि सो सबै यो सेन्सेसहरु युज गर्न खोजेको मैले है सेन्सेसहरु युज गरेर तपाईहरुले बोल्न सक्नु भयो भने एक्जामिनर पनि क्याप्टिभेट हुन्छ त्यो तपाईले भन्न खोजेको कुरामा सो दिस इज हाउ यु कुड एक्सप्यान्ड योर आइडियाज एउटा तरिका ओके यस सो यु हेभ टु ब्रिङ सेन्सेसन है तपाईले बोल्दाखेरि सेन्सेसन ल्याउन सक्नु पर्यो अलिकति क्याप्टिभेट गर्न सक्नु पर्यो नाउ आई नो मैले पो तपाईहरुलाई आज अहिले 15-20 मिनेटको स्टोरी भने होला प्रोबब्ली है 15 मिनेटको बोले होला नाउ व्हाट अबाउट 2 मिनट्स हामीसँग 2 मिनट छ अहिले मैले 15 मिनेटको बोले तर हामीसँग त 2 मिनट छ है तर तपाईहरुले हिजोको क्लासमा याद गर्नुभयो हिजो मैले तपाईहरुलाई त्यो रोलेक्स वाचको बारे खासै मैले तपाईहरुलाई कहाँ लाने र तर मैले एउटा ठाउँमा लगेको थिएँ तपाईहरुलाई वेयर डु यु थिंक कहाँ लगेको थिएँ मैले
सुस्सा लेखेर युके बाट ल्याएको भन्नुभएको थियो
नट दैट युके वाला त मैले खासै त्यसको बारे के गरेको छैन अंडर वाटर 5 किलोमिटर
अंडर वाटर सबमरिन कि समथिङ
यस यस अर्को पनि एउटा ठाउँ लिएर गएको थिएँ मैले
हेर्नै पर्छ
मेरो घरमा
सबमरिन
आई टोल्ड यु माय वाइफ
सिस्टर
कभर्ड एन्ड क्लिन्स त्यसलाई एभ्रीडे क्लिन गर्छ भनेको थिएँ मैले हो सो या आई मिन you cannot expand in each and every question but sometimes you can put in small त्यसको सानो small gestहरू ल्याउन मिल्छ के ताकि द एक्जामिनर अलिकति इन्ट्रेस्टेड भएर बसोस् आफ्नो तपाईले भनेको कुरामा है सो दिस इज अ भेरी गुड वे अफ डुइङ पार्ट 2 है इमेजिनेसनलाई युज गरेर सेन्सेसन युज गरेर है अनि अलिकति मान्छेलाई क्याप्टिभेट गर्ने तरिका यो है सो दिस इज एक्सप्यान्ड योर आइडियाज सो दिस वाज जस्ट एन एक्जाम्पल अफ एक्सप्यान्डिङ आइडियाज ठीक छ सो डु वी हेभ एनी क्वेशन्स अहिलेसम्म
सर अब त्यो जस्तै क्याची बनाउने अनि त्यो एक्जामिनरलाई पनि अलिकति एटेन्सन दिने जस्तो बनाउने हामीले आफ्नो कुराहरूले
यस बट मेक श्योर द्याट इट्स नट धेरै पनि गर्नु भएन जस्ट एउटा सटल वेमा है
हजुर
नर्मल
हजुर
सटल वेमा धेरै पनि नगर्ने सटल वेमा चाहिँ गर्न मिल्छ अनि स्टोरी ओके एउटा कुरा है हरेक टास्क पार्ट 2 को क्वेसनलाई तपाईहरुले स्टोरीमा आन्सर गर्न मिल्छ अलमोस्ट एभ्री क्वेसनलाई है स्टोरी एउटा कथा बनाएर कथा भित्र नै आन्सरहरु राख्न पाइन्छ okay so let's try maybe कुनै सकिन्छ कि सकिन्न हेरौँ है त so I have some questions for you here part 2 मा ल हेर्नुस् so part 2 को क्वेशन यस्तो खालको हुन्छ है धेरै जसो सेम यस्तै फर्म्याटको हुन्छ so first question मा के छ describe a famous celebrity from your country who you admire त्यसमा you should say who the person is what kind of celebrity this person is, describe why this person has become successful, and explain why you admire this person. है अर्को छ त्यहाँनिर अर्को question, describe one of your neighbors. What sort of person your neighbor is? Do you like this neighbor? When do you usually meet this neighbor? And explain if this person is a good neighbor. भनेपछि तपाईले यो नेबरको कुरामा स्टोरी बनाउन सक्नुहुन्छ कि हुँदैन? What do you think?
सकिन्छ सर अब सोचेर टक्क बनाउनु पर्यो
अब if I were to make a story out of this है 2 मिनेटको कुरा हो मैले आन्सर गर्नुपर्ने कुराहरु मेरो नेबर कस्तो खालको मान्छे हो मलाई मन पर्छ कि मन पर्दैन है कति कहिले कहिले भेट्नु हुन्छ नेबरलाई and explain if the person is a good neighbor यदि गुड छ कि छैन भन्ने कुरा सो मैले यसलाई स्टार्ट गर्ने पर्ने भइदा धेरै जसो हामीले स्टार्ट गर्दा के हुन्छ I am going to talk about my neighbor भनेर सुरु गर्छौं होला है तर if I want to become more into हुन्छ नि स्पिकिङ मा अझै पार्ट 2 मा एकदम एक्सप्यान्ड गरेर दिने हो भने I would say something like it was in December of 2012 when a family moved right beside my house. They had rented the house beside me because the man who owned that house was traveling to the United States of America. Now, this family I could see were really noisy and loud. There were 3 children. So I'm trying to make a story there, right? Ekdam quick. 3 children थियो. So they moved in. After a few days, I could see then someone came to my house and knocked the door. When I opened the door, it was the man who was living next door. Right? What sort of person your neighbor is? And he had brought pickles for me to eat, or for my family to eat. What sort of person your neighbor is? Generous. So story ma create गरेर पनि लान मिल्छ भन्न खोजे बुझिरहनु भएको छ नि I hope you guys
हामीसँग टाइम त हुन्छ नि त सर हैन जस्तै 1 मिनेटको टाइम त हुन्छ सोच्नलाई
yes so you can think of that story
त्यही त
एउटा स्टोरी लाइन बनाउन पायो है सो अब यो यस्तो हो के मैले जुन फर्स्टमा दिएको इट्स द नर्मल वे अफ डुइङ इट अस्ति हिजो दिएको ओके अब नाउ यो जुन मैले अहिले दिइरहेको छु त्यो चाहिँ के हो यु गोइङ टु द नेक्स्ट लेभल अफ पार्ट 2 को स्पिकिङ यु आर ट्राइङ टु टेक इट टु द नेक्स्ट लेभल वेयर यु सो अ स्टोरी तर क्वेसन आन्सर पनि हुँदै जानुपर्छ बुझ्नु भयो नि मेक श्योर द्याट तपाईको यो क्वेसन आन्सर हुँदै जाओस् डिस्क्राइब भनेको छ नि त सो त्यो मान्छे देयर वाज अ म्यान एट द डोर ही वाज शॉर्ट but he had a mustache, a very thick mustache, and he was wearing short cotton pant and shirt. He looked really simple. So describe, ulai describe garna सक्नु पर्यो बुझिरहनु भएको छ I hope you guys are understanding what I'm trying to say.
Yes sir.
Yes sir.
Okay, so any question can be made into a story, eh? Describe an old person you admire. मा तपाईले आफ्नो grandfather को कुरा गर्न मिल्छ भने a man अनि त्यसरी पनि सुरु गर्न मिल्छ के a man who traveled to Kathmandu without a penny, है being able to हुन्छ नि create an empire of his own भनेर सो आफ्नो हजुरबाउको बारे पनि भन्न पायो हजुरबाको बारे है so many things you could do in part 2 but 2 minutes सब बोल्दै जाने आन्सर चाहिँ त्यो भित्र भित्र त्यो सब त्यो कथा भित्र चाहिँ आन्सर राख्दै जाने describe someone you know who is a good teacher भन्ने कुरामा है टिचरको एउटा स्टोरी भन्दिने के भएको थियो उले कसरी के गरेको थियो भनेर है that could be one Describe an interesting person who you know. So the person ko bare भन्ने. Describe a place that you visited that you particularly liked. भनेपछि यो visit को कसरी तपाईहरुको सुरु भयो? Trip कसरी सुरु भयो पनि भन्न मिल्छ. It was say 4 o'clock in the morning. My friend called me up and woke me. It was cold, and when I looked out the window, it was still dark and foggy. भनेर सुरु गर्न पाए भनेपछि तपाईहरु बिहानको 4 बजे कतै जानला भिजिट गर्नलाई त्यो स्टोरी भन्ने के त्यसपछि हामी गाडीमा चढेर we took a bus to यो ठाउँ त्यो ठाउँमा जाँदा जाँदा के भयो कोसँग गएको थियौ कसरी मेमोरेबल भयो त्यो ठाउँ नपुग्दा हामी फर्किनु पर्यो गाडी बिग्रियो के भयो अनि मेमोरेबल भयो I don't know, it's up to you. Okay, so this is part 2 actually. Yes.
Just as you have explained, start talking and don't worry about the time factor.
Yeah.
While doing that, we may leave one or more questions over there.
Yes.
So
you may leave.
Exactly necessary that we go on order, or we can
okay,
on our own pace.
You don't have to go in order. You can use any order you want while answering. है टेन्सन लिनु परेन डोन्ट थिंक अबाउट ए मैले यो पछि यो पोइन्ट भन्नुपर्छ भन्ने हुँदैन त्यो पोइन्टहरु सबै त्यहाँ भित्र मिक्स भएर पनि आउन पाइन्छ पार्ट 2 मा चाहिँ है डोन्ट हैव टु टक अबाउट एभ्री बुलेट पोइन्ट भनेर यो अस्तिको हिजोको नोट है यो यसमै लेखिदिएको छु मैले सबै बुलेट पोइन्ट बोल्नै पर्छ कहिलेकाहीँ टाइम भ्याउँदैन बोलेको नभ्याएको छ भने पनि इट्स फाइन डजन्ट म्याटर तर सकेसम्म चाहिँ हाल्न खोज्नु भन्ने कुरा ओके ऑल राइट So do we have any Ajay? Yes. Okay. So preparing your answers, है यसमा चाहिँ prepare गर्ने answer कसरी prepare गर्ने part 2 मा भन्ने कुरा है you have only 1 minute to prepare your answer so you should use it wisely है यो हामीलाई थाहा छ focus on identifying keywords in the question है keywords हरु question मा के छ डिस्क्राइब गर्नु भनेको छ मलाई एक्सप्लेन गर्नु भनेको छ यो कुरा हु व्हाट व्हाई हुन्छ नि सो सबै थिंक अबाउट द टेन्स रिक्वायर्ड कुन टेन्समा बोल्ने पहिलाको कुरामा पास्ट गर्छु अनि प्रेजेन्टमा पनि ल्याउँछु अनि फ्युचरमा लान्छु भनेर I'll just leave you with something positive है believe you can and you're halfway there है सो गर्न सक्छु भनेर सोच्नु मात्रले पनि तपाईहरु आधा बाटो चाहिँ पुगिसक्नुहुन्छ है so I'll leave you at that positive note and I'll see you all on Monday. Bye-bye and take care of yourselves.